I got pretty long eyelashes, and they like in my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do have the nice, what everyone dreams of in terms of eyelashes.
Oh, my daughter is like so set. Like,
Oh
what was
yeah.
it? She was at an event the other day, and someone came out, like, mentioned like, "Oh, she has such beautiful eyelashes," and I just think in my head, "You're welcome, Lily."
And there's our cold open, ladies and gentlemen. It is August 16th, 2026. This is season 3 of Over the Loudspeaker, a YouTube show brought to you by the Hayward Herald. Colin, how are you doing? It's been such a
I'm
long
doing
time.
okay. It has been a while. It's like coming home, Nestor. It's like coming home in a good way. I assume.
A warm embrace.
Yes, yes. Hopefully for everyone else too, who's
Yeah,
missed us.
exactly.
All 12 of you.
Yeah, exactly. Our dedicated viewers. You have been very busy the last few months covering all sorts of Hayward related content, Hayward related news, but and some, as I just saw recently published a piece around a bartending competition that
Yeah.
happened in downtown. So even I would say beyond Hayward news, that's Hayward. Yeah, I guess you could still call it news, but it's culture, the arts, local events that are happening. It's all being covered. And it's all being done by the Hayward Herald. I dare say the most popular Hayward podcasts that exist.
I don't know. I guess technically speaking, the other podcast, which shall not be named, is technically outside of Hayward, I guess. But I would say otherwise. Yeah, sure.
Otherwise,
we can do that. Prove me wrong.
So. Yeah. Show me the numbers, and the addresses.
Yes.
Well, should we jump right into our Hayward headlines?
Sure. All right. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, neighbors, it is August 2026, and I am Colin Thormoto from the Hayward Herald with your local news headlines. We're going to be covering all of summer 2026 in the summer recap. The stacked data center deep dive. Public resentment of new data centers grew over the summer, and we dug deep into why the largest data center in Hayward received very little public attention and input. Drawing on months of steady reporting from the Hayward Herald, in June, Naomi Powell explained the flawed approval process that classified data centers as office buildings and how the Planning Commission, who ultimately approved the project, seemed ill-equipped to negotiate such an important piece of local infrastructure. A plan to replace the loop. What many view as the worst thing to happen to Hayward's downtown, the loop took the first baby steps to being undone also in June. The new Civic Avenue plan, favored by the City Council, will narrow A and Mission to two-way, two-lane streets and reduce Foothill to a two-way, four-lane street. According to studies, additional traffic may reroute to Grand Avenue and 2nd Street, but everyone involved agreed that it will be much better for our city when it finally gets underway. And drones and surveillance in Hayward took a headline this time around. The AI that's driving demand for data centers is also being used in local policing. Contributor Ariana Castellanos wrote a story diving deep into the surveillance technologies used by police departments across the country, including the Hayward Police Department. From drones as first responders to license plate readers to security cameras, these technologies are being used locally with minimal resident oversight. And other things also happened. The summer was a busy time for us with articles on how local government works so you can make it work for you, how zoning has ensured the only nurseries in Hayward are at Home Depot, music from a local artist, a bartender battle in downtown Hayward, and more. The Hayward Herald, we cover Hayward like nobody else so you can better know your city. If you'd like to learn more about these headlines and support what we do, please subscribe at haywardherald.org. The Hayward Herald is your only source of independent news delivered to your inbox at least twice a week. Please subscribe and share our stories with your friends, families, and neighbors.
Oh, I've missed those headlines, Colin. Let me tell you, it's such a treat to have you back on here. And I act like I've been recording and doing things, but this is our summer break, and we're back officially. And it's exciting. I think that it feels like we've had a little bit more expanded coverage, a lot of topics that we've touched on over the summer, some things that have fallen through and have been picked up, and then some other things that we could be working on, but there's only so much time and capacity that we have as a small little volunteer newsroom. Dare I say newsroom?
You can say it. We can say it.
I can say anything. Well, sort of.
Within reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that lovely segue, Nestor. We're gonna move into a new segment. The Hayward is a city of over 150,000 people where news happens every single day. But the Hayward Herald is a completely volunteer-run news outlet with a very small team, so things are bound to happen that we can't get to. To let you know what we're missing, we decided to share the stories we couldn't get to in our new segment, Through the Cracks. Local gold medal winning junior Olympian track athlete is set to join Moreau Catholic High School. We don't know any more than that because we don't have time. First Presbyterian South Hayward Parish Food Pantry closed, marking the end of 50 years of service in South Hayward. The Department of Fish and Wildlife staged some kind of action off of Industrial Boulevard in late July. I have no idea what. I was given a tip about it and was never able to make it. Local businesses are also closing, including Palea Plant Shop in South Hayward and Yukihana Sushi in downtown. The Juneteenth celebration at Mount Eden High School happened. We weren't able to attend or cover anything that happened there. The grass fire in the Hayward Hills off of Carlos B. Boulevard. That happened while I was unfortunately away on vacation. And other local actions and events supporting victims of tragedies in the Philippines. I recall at least two of these happening, and we weren't able to make it to any of them. And those are just the things that we happen to know about. If you want to see more local reporting on these or other stories we're unable to cover, consider helping us out in one of three ways. 1, subscribe to the Hayward Herald newsletter. It's completely free. 2, become a paid member. We exclusively rely on small dollar funding from our community to thrive and grow. 3, lend a hand. If you or someone you know has the time and ability to participate in local reporting, contact us by email, social media, or comment in one of our videos, like this one, or social media posts. In the meantime, we'll keep serving our community the best we can with what we have, and thank you for watching.
Awesome. I am excited about the fact that we have maybe some hot merch coming soon. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm wearing my Democracy hat now. I'm sort of spoiling it. I am spoiling it. I'm wearing my Democracy Now hat, and I would love to be wearing a Hayward Herald, something related. I don't know if there's going to be wardrobe associate. I'm not going to spoil what may be coming, but only to say that there will be merch. I don't know if I was supposed to announce that tonight, Colin, but I wanted to I wanted to get people excited about what the possibilities are. So like if the reporting that you're getting around city council commissions, things that are important in your community, if the video format isn't enough for you, we will bring you even more with hopefully some Hayward Herald merchandise and things that the goodies. People love the goodies.
Yeah, the goodies, absolutely. If we do have some that are available, that we have at least one item that is available exclusively to paid subscribers. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. We also will eventually be adding some amount of items. We'll see what we have the capacity and ability to do, but stay tuned to our newsletter and our social media. We will definitely be sure to announce it there for anybody who wants to support us in that way to take advantage of.
Awesome. And before we jump into our first topic and do a little bit of a deep dive, I wanted to present another new segment for our viewers and listeners. And this is what I'm calling a Hayward Two Truths and a Lie. Colin, this is a challenge for you. I don't think you named any of these headlines in your in your Through the Cracks piece. And so I'm going to mention a few headlines that I have come across as I get in my inbox or as I'm reading the news, and you're going to decide which is the fake Hayward headline. All right. So the first one coming your way: Amazon delivery van stolen in Hayward, man arrested. A man was arrested after an Amazon delivery van was stolen on Monday, August 10th, according to the Hayward Police Department. Officers were dispatched around 12:30 to a report of the stolen vehicle on the 800 block of Alonda Court. That is your first Hayward headline. I'll go to the second one. Think it over. Hayward man uses ChatGPT to sell home. Robert Levine used OpenAI's ChatGPT to prep, list, and advise him on the sale of his home. He even asked ChatGPT to make marketing materials, coordinate showings, set up meetings with prospective buyers, and eventually draft the contract of sale. Although Levine said he had a human review it afterward. And the third Hayward headline: Hayward Barbecue founder turns 100. At 100, Carmen Kelly may no longer be greeting customers at the door while she's peeling sweet potatoes, but she's still a presence at the restaurant founded in 1979. The Jamaican-born chef and birthday and the restaurant were celebrated in late May and again in August, where she held court at her Hayward restaurant. Colin, two truths and a lie. Which one do you think is the fake Hayward headline?
I've got to level with you, Nestor. I was really confused and like locked in, and then I heard the last one, and I'm like, oh, I got this. I got this.
It was there's a little bit of a what was that one show where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you could there's kind of a giveaway there, but anyway.
Yeah. Carmen's Barbecue is right there on A Street, and that is absolutely the one Hayward headline.
That's a Hayward headline for sure. That is a Hayward headline. That one, the Hayward Barbecue founder did turn 100. It was covered by the Mercury News, in which Carmen Kelly was interviewed. And that is a legit Hayward headline. Can you tell which is the fake Hayward headline?
I'm going to say the ChatGPT selling the house.
Look
is the fake Hayward headline.
Look at you, Colin. It is the fake ChatGPT headline. Unfortunately, it's a real story that just didn't happen in Hayward. Can you guess where it might have taken place?
I'm gonna guess Bay Area. Let's say I'm gonna say Fremont. No?
Oh, no. It's a Florida man.
Good
old Florida man. Yeah, it's a Florida man story.
Florida man story.
A man in Florida used ChatGPT to sell his home. So that's the fake Hayward headline. And yeah, Amazon delivery van was stolen in Hayward. Man was arrested. That was a recent headline that was covered. So we're new segment we're trying out, having a little fun with it. But now I think we can do a deep dive into our first story, which is about the uproar around data centers. And our very own Naomi Powell is here to join us and talk a little bit about her story and what she covered, and maybe give us a little bit of an overview of why this is such a hot issue right now, what might be some misconceptions or misinformation, or even sort of things that Hayward residents should just be aware of as we talk about these data centers. So we're going to learn a little bit more. I'm going to bring Naomi onto the stage here. All right. So Naomi, do you want to start with talking a little bit about how a 300 square foot facility that is going to be standing 100 feet tall, and I believe you went to check out the site earlier today, if I'm not mistaken. How did that make it through City Council without City Council's direct oversight or approval? Talk us through that process a little bit. And I will say that maybe for folks who are listening to this for the first time, this has been, I think, one of our most popular articles in the last few months, maybe in the last year or so. And so but for folks who haven't checked out the article, give us a little bit of an overview of why is it that this data center was approved without the oversight of council.
Yeah, and just quick correction, it's going to be 300,000 square foot data center, so it's quite a large facility that they will be building. Well, I'll try to be as quick as possible in the like how the data center was approved. So really, it underwent standard planning processes here in the city. At the time in which the project was submitted to the city for review, data centers were not a distinct land use. They fell under a broader category of office use. So the building proceeded through planning and permitting until they submitted a small power plant exemption from the California Energy Commission, excuse me. And at that point, the CEC took over doing an initial environmental impact study. And, that got processed. And at that point, the project would have been approved by city staff. However, the developers, Stack Infrastructure, wanted to build the facility over the standard code. So they wanted an additional 75 feet of height in the industrial district. And so that's when the data center went before the Planning Commission for approval. Planning Commission at that point reviewed the environmental documents, the initial study, and the mitigated negative declaration that was produced by the CEC, reviewed it, said everything looked good, negotiated a public benefits package, and then approved the project at that point. So I want to clarify that had the developer not requested additional building height, the project would have been approved by city staff and would not have had kind of any oversight from an appointed body, city council, or the mayor at all. And of course, by the time it was approved and construction started is when the public became aware of the project. And then, everybody is now very upset about just how little kind of public discussion was involved throughout the planning process. So that's kind of the gist of how it got through.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Hayward Herald had sort of at least had some coverage of the data center going back to when it was first being proposed or at least when it first came before the city council, when they were discussing the public benefits, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the planning commission. And so there was some coverage of it early on, but maybe not enough to grab the attention of folks like it currently is.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to give Colin all his credit and kudos for covering the data center, because he really did since 2024, excuse me. Whenever it came up in planning commission meetings, he was reporting on it. So really the data center article that I put together was, me going through, re-looking at the coverage that the Hayward Herald had already put out there. And then just kind of doing some additional digging into the planning commission documents and meeting notes that he covered already. And I just tried to put it together in one succinct piece so that people could clearly follow like what happened between 2024 and 2026.
And I know that you're working on a sort of follow-up piece and have been sort of sleuthing online, and sort of following where this story is going. I know that there was a recent town hall. I don't know how much you want to talk about the town hall that you attended, and whether or not how much the data center was a point that came up during that town hall. But why do you think that there's been such a sort of strong reaction to this data center here in Hayward?
Yeah. So I think part of why the data center is getting a lot of pushback is partially because of how big it is. It is a very, very big facility. I did go by and I drove past it today. And it's huge. Like, there's no denying how big the facility is. It is very much in an industrial part of Hayward. We drove around. I actually drove by all of the existing data centers that are in Hayward, not just the one that's being built now. And I didn't drive past any houses or like, I think the furthest house is like a little over a kilometer away from the facility. And that's no way in me trying to say there are not environmental impacts. It is right there on the shore. But it is in a very industrialized part of the city. But I think really the pushback comes from, in the last 5 to 6 years, I think a lot of people, especially in other states, in more rural parts of the country, have had really bad negative impacts from having really large facilities built in their community. So I think some of the concern comes from what people are seeing happening in other states and in other communities across the country. And I think it's a valid concern. I think what I'm a little hesitant about is just some of the misinformation that you see online. I also think that what happens in other states is a little bit different context than what happens here in California. And so that's something I'm going to be covering in the article, because California has some of the strongest environmental protections in the entire country. I'll be writing a little bit about the California Environmental Quality Act, which is the state law that requires all developments undergo some form of environmental review. So, of course, I think people are, have fair reason to like want more environmental review. They might want studies done on things that are not yet required by CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. And I think people are also just genuinely upset that this kind of went under the radar. I think people feel that city council and the mayor should have had more oversight and say in whether this project proceeded forward. And I think it's, I hope to shed some light in the article in, how can people take their outrage and frustration and direct it in a way that is actually going to help them see change that they want to see, both, in Hayward and in the state overall.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if also, some of the outrage is, because I think I've seen comments online where it's like, oh, the city is breaking the law, right? Which is probably not true, because I think, they followed the law, or at least the process seemed to follow the law. Was there any chance, I think, in the process, I guess maybe that's where some concerns might come from, is like, was there any chance in the process where council could have, quote unquote, vetoed the Stack Center, right? Or negotiated more public benefits or something along those lines that maybe could have not necessarily sort of answered maybe all of the concerns around like the environmental impact, the water usage, but maybe sort of, allowed some residents to say, well, at the very least, the council is making sure that, they're sort of following this closely and making sure that Hayward gets the benefit out of this project. Which, I mean, there is a public benefits package included. We could go back and forth whether or not it's enough, but but there is some of that. But was there any chance for the council to veto in this process, or does it seem like it was pretty much set in stone?
Yeah, I think at least from my research, there was not a point in the planning process where the city council could have come in and vetoed the project. And something I think people also don't understand is that throughout the planning process, at any point, if the city said, we're not going to issue this permit, and the developer followed every process, got every study done. Oh, sorry, a clarification. Council is able to pull something from Planning Commission at any point if they want to. But I think given that this project underwent the initial study, they did the mitigated negative declaration, they followed the planning process. Again, likely at any point, if the city denies a permit, the developer has every right to appeal the city's decision, and can also litigate and say, hey, we're following CEQA, we're following all of the building codes, we're, doing what we're supposed to do. Why aren't you issuing a building permit to us? Especially since it's on a private property that they purchased also. So technically, I think city council could have pulled it from planning commission, but I think it would have been very hard for this project to be stopped, because it's on a private property, and also being developed by a corporation with a lot of resources at their disposal.
Yeah. And maybe if the hindsight is 2020, is, if they would have known that the sort of uproar, maybe council acts differently, or I know that in Oakland, there's interest now in a data center being built. I think there's Amazon involved now, and it might be Musk that is involved, right? So I think now it's very much on people's radar, and using examples from out of the state where the data centers tend to be much, much larger also. And we're talking, I think I messed up and said 300 square feet, but it's 300,000 square feet. But where the data centers I've seen out of state we're talking about acreages of land that is being used for these data centers, and lots of water and electricity being used for those data centers. I will say that there is a state law that is currently, I think, making its way through the assembly. It's AB 2619, and it's around water resources, where data centers would be required. This bill would require data centers to, prior to applying for a city or county business license, would have to do a good faith estimate of the water it's going to use. So again, that's state law that doesn't currently exist, right? If this was in place already beforehand, then city council has more leverage, let's say, to be able to say hey, we're concerned about the environmental impact, we're concerned about the water use, we're concerned about X, Y, and Z. But that wasn't in place yet, and that's a bill that's currently making its way through the assembly. And then I guess the other thing is as this becomes a hot issue, I think the state senator who's running for Swalwell seat, Aisha Wahab, also was featured on the Hassan Piker stream and talked about a moratorium, whether or not she was in favor of a moratorium for data centers. So it's a hot issue. There's a lot of coverage of it right now, a lot of emotions, strong emotions, and feelings about whether AI and all these new technologies that are going to rely on lots of energy use and what the impact will be on sort of regular everyday citizens. So sort of makes sense that people here locally are fired up about the topic, but maybe don't have all of the information that they may need to make a really informed argument around these things. Is that sort of fair to say, maybe?
Absolutely. And I think, Colin did a great article not too long ago about the complexities of doing anything in California, because we have, your mayor, your city council members, you have your school districts, you have park districts. Like, there's so many layers of government that are at play in California, especially when it comes to things like data centers, right? So, here within the Bay Area, like the way that a data center could be built in Alameda County could look very different than like if you move to another county, because counties have very, different ways in which they govern, right? And then each city has their, own ordinances. And not every city is run the same way. So, here in Hayward, our mayor and city council members are essentially like paid volunteers, right? They're not at city hall all day, every single day. It's not their full-time job. Whereas in some of the bigger cities in the Bay Area, like the mayor that's their full-time job. That's all they're doing is working with city staff to make sure things are running. I do think that, in Hayward, I think the mayor and city council are hearing frustration, and we've seen changes based off of public outrage. First, they updated city codes so that data centers are a distinct land use now, and that projects over a certain size have to come to city council for review and approval and after a public hearing. So they heard loud and clear that people were upset that the stack infrastructure project kind of went under the radar, that city council really didn't have a say. So they responded to that. After the August 11th town hall, it was clear that people felt that that was not enough. And now we see that they will be considering a ban on all future data centers at the September 15th meeting. So it's one of those unfortunate things where I think a lot of communities, both here in California and across the country, are playing catch up, against an industry that's moving very fast, an industry that has a lot of resources. And frankly, I think has kind of the time to look for opportune places where there are loopholes and they are able to like get in under the radar and get their projects approved with little to no oversight or pushback.
And maybe a lot of competition, right? So companies competing with each other for data set, for coverage around that. I'd like to bring Colin back in. Just to make it a trifecta. Sorry, Colin, to surprise you that way. Colin, is there any chance for political blowback as a result of what we're seeing with the data centers? I know that, as Naomi just mentioned, there's going to be consideration of a ban on data centers on September 15th. Is this going to be just in time before the election? Is there any chance that there could be some political blowback?
I mean, I think the short answer is maybe. There's a chance for political blowback for almost anything, but for this one, clearly people are very upset. I think the question, especially for the 3 people who are up for election, especially the 2 who actually have an opponent, is whether a moratorium is going to appease people. That remains an open question. It's not like we have people to do polling. We don't have that kind of money here. But I think clearly the people made their voices and desires known, and the mayor responded to that. The announcement of considering a moratorium happened days maybe afterwards, after that meeting. And so I think I I would be surprised if that was enough for especially a lot of the most vocal people who showed up, because they seem to want their demands have been pretty openly that they want this particular project to be stopped. That is not inherently legally possible, but that's never stopped people from ignoring it and voting differently anyway. So I think it's definitely a political weakness right now for the current city council members. It's just whether how they're able to weather that storm, and whether what they can legally do is going to be enough to appease enough people.
And maybe oh, go ahead, Naomi.
I was just going to say, I also do speak to that in the upcoming article that will be coming out, is just a little bit of like, what can the city legally do? I mean, it's at this point, they would be infringing on the developer's constitutional property rights to develop the property that's already been approved. So if they revoked it, we would likely be, or the city would likely get a very big lawsuit.
Yeah, and the city cannot afford a pretty big hefty lawsuit in this moment. I'm curious. I don't know how much, Naomi, you want to talk a little bit about what the town hall atmosphere was like for folks who weren't there at the town hall. Can you give us a little bit more? I know you're going to write about this, and that piece will be coming out soon, but can you give us a little bit more on just like the details of the town hall, whether it was a town hall specifically for this issue, or if it was a sort of or if it was for many things, and data centers were kind of just rose to the top?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was at a church, and the town hall began with a prayer led by the pastor who leads the church, and he called for, you know, respect, and like, we're all here to be in community together. And I think it was made clear very quickly that people were very upset. I do think that Mayor Salinas really intended for the town hall to be an opportunity to share some positive updates about what's happening in the city. He, began the meeting to report that crime has been down overall in the city over the last year or so. That, the city has been working really hard to improve some transportation things, railroad crossings, implementation of bike lanes, some other, looking at redoing the loop downtown. And, he did in his opening say that there would be time to talk about the data center. But individuals very quickly took over the town hall and shifted the focus from, any kind of updates to at times it really felt like there weren't questions being asked, and more just people expressing frustration. There was a lot of talking over each other, a lot of yelling. I could tell that the mayor and the city manager, Jennifer Ott, were trying very, very hard to answer people's questions, but it seemed like, any question that was answered was interpreted as not answering the questions that were being asked. So, yeah, definitely like the figurative pitchforks and torches were out that night.
I'm sort of thinking about what this September 15th meeting might look like, and could we see, it's interesting. I think that the data centers, I think you tend to think of certain hot issues being sort of on one side of the political spectrum, or another. And it seems like data centers sort of kind of is the one issue in which brings out folks from all ends of the political spectrum, unless you're sort of like a real true free market zealot and like say big business, which there are some folks like that. But it does seem like this brings out not the usual crowd of folks who say are going to show up to city council to for what there's something on the agenda and they're showing up. Did that seem fair too? Did that, at least from what you were able to kind of suss out of the town hall, it seemed like maybe folks that on other issues would be on maybe opposite ends of the political spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, there was a wide range of ages in the room, demographic backgrounds. There were definitely parents in the room, people who are concerned about public health. So definitely a diverse group of people. I I don't feel that there was anybody there that was in favor of data centers, and I know that those folks do exist, but they were not there in the room to, express support of the project. I have seen some kind of discussions online where people kind of, I don't wanna say defend data centers, but try to, like, add some nuance to the the conversation 'cause it's been pretty one-sided from what I can see. But definitely, I think a lot of people that were there are not the usual people who are, like, keeping an eye out on what's going on at City Hall.
Yeah, so we'll have to stay tuned to see how that September 15th meeting plays out. I'm really curious about how it'll play out. My guess is that that the moratorium, or the ban, I guess that's a good question. Naomi, do you know the answer? Is this an outright ban, or is this a moratorium where it's like we're gonna not approve data centers for the next year until we figure this out, sort of thing? Or what do we know the details of that yet?
I don't know the details of it yet. I was on Hayward Legistar today trying to see if, like, the meeting agenda had come out yet, and it's not out. So unfortunately, I don't have, a firm answer on that. I do think it is, possible that they consider an outright ban on the data center. I do believe that was talked about during the town hall on the 11th. Jennifer Ott, the city manager, tried to clarify for people in the room that if the city were to ban data centers, that it would create, I believe, what's called a non-conditional use for the data centers that are already existing in the city, which would essentially make it so that they're not allowed to do expansions, they're not allowed to change what their business is. So they would be grandfathered in, they wouldn't be required to shut down per se, but they would only ever be able to operate at the capacity and like how their facility was already designed. So a ban does have implications for data centers that already exist within the city. And then, of course, a ban, depending on exactly how they decide to do that, would have implications for any future data centers in the city.
Thanks for your coverage of this hot issue, the hottest issue right now, I think, in Hayward news. One thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't have a chance to mention is to properly introduce you. I think I should bring Colin back onto the stage here because, and I like the trifecta, but this is the small team over at the Hayward Herald. Naomi, I think you help on the writing side of things and even on the social media side of things, if I'm not mistaken. At least this is the trust, the brain trust that you're looking at for everything we do. So if you're interested in getting involved with us. These are the folks that you'd be working alongside with. So really exciting that we had you finally. We've done now 3 seasons of YouTube shows, and this is the first time we've had you on, Naomi. So it's really exciting that you're on here and that you're able to talk about this really exciting story that everyone has been checking out on the Hayward Herald.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on and chat. And I know the first data center piece was a hit. Hopefully everybody likes this next one. We'll see how they like my coverage on that. There's not too many opportunities for us to stop this, but there are opportunities to have real impact going forward. I do think so.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, y'all. Like we're doing some fair, honest, and balanced reporting here. We're just trying to give you all the facts. Don't come for us, but at the very least, I think we're going to be providing links as always to the articles. I'll provide a link to this assembly bill that would require, if it passes, some reporting on, or at least some due diligence on the water usages. And of course, keep an eye out for Naomi's piece as it comes out. Colin, any last words before we close up for tonight?
No, thank you, Naomi, for making the time last minute to come in. And also, the story will hopefully be out on Tuesday. That's the plan. If you're seeing this after Tuesday, go check it out. And if Nestor manages to get this out so fast, gosh, just be so happy.
I'll do my best.
One day turnaround is not going to happen, I'm sure, almost certainly.
Well, you never know. I did have I went to Eon Coffee and had an extra large Dutch iced coffee. Those things are incredibly powerful. I recommend, if you're doing an all-nighter, or if you just are an insane person like I am and can have those in the afternoon, to have one. They're great. And that's our show. Yeah, and that's our show. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good time, and we'll see you around town.